Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of The Watch Collector. My name's Ollie. Today we're going to look at the brand Felipe Pikullik. I've reviewed his watches before and it's no secret I love what he has done and this is going to be no different. Spoiler alert. Before we get onto it, obligatory wristwatch check. I'm wearing the Omega Seamaster 300 Chronograph. So Felipe Pikullik founded his brand in 2017 in Berlin, in Germany. The whole idea really to bring contemporary watchmaking and skeletonization, shall we say, probably predominantly, not to the masses because he's not in any way a mass market watch producer, but more accessible. And the FPSK 24, which I have here, is within a point, precisely that. This is not a cheap watch by any means, around £16,000. I know that is a lot, but for the level of work that has gone into this and the skeletonization, both back and front, I think it's actually very good value for that price point. Let me tell you why. So it housed in a 41mm stainless steel case, hand finished, 10.5mm in diameter. It does have really quite handsome lugs that step aside or step away from the head of the case, but actually what they do is, as you'll see when I put it on the wrist, it just allows for that gentle curvature so that even if you do have a smaller wrist, and mine aren't particularly thick, it really allows for it to nestle into your wrist. But of course the star of the show here is the movement. So it starts off as a 6497 ETA movement. Now, some of you will be saying, £16,000 for an ETA movement, this guy's gone mad. But look at the work that has been done in order to make this genuinely pretty. So, taking apart that ETA movement, the entire movement has been either coated in rhodium or rose gold, as you can see from the gearing. You've got black polish, you've got rhodium plated, you've got super neat bevels. It really is quite captivating when you're looking at this and you think to yourself, is that really an ETA movement? This is what ETA movements could look like if someone put the time and the effort into making them pretty. Put it this way, you take a skeletonized movement, finish to this level, and put it in a much larger brand, you're not going to be paying £16,000. Now admittedly, yes, okay, you'll say, well, you're paying for the history, you're paying for them to create their own movements. But if you look at them and you really study them with a loupe, you'll see why this watch works at that price point. So as I mentioned, that's the movement. Beats away at 18,000 vibrations per hour, I think, and is 30-meter water resistant. You're not going to want to swim with this watch. This is a dress watch. Totally, admittedly, yes, it's in stainless steel, but you can 100% get away with it because of the way that on the case flanks, you've got both the brushed and the satinization. In fact, you have striations along the side of the case. It's really, really nicely done. And even on the crown, you've got, it's not quite onion, but you do have a nice knurling on the side, and it makes it quite satisfying to wind. In fact, what we're going to do, is do that right now. You can hear it. You can see it, perhaps most importantly, and you can feel it. If you flip it over, sorry, but that's really pretty. And in some ways reminds me of the Chapek Antarctique Passage de Drake movement, the way that the bridges really quite beautifully bend around. And you can tell that this is an FPSK 24, not only because it's engraved here, but also because you have this one singular golden bridge, hand engraved, and what is a really nice touch on this particular piece, in fact all of these, this is a limited edition of 10, you have the number engraved on that golden bridge. So this is number 8 of 10. That level of detail with this level of finishing, honestly, I know I keep saying this, but £16,000 is of course a lot of money. There's no getting away from it. But come on, if you've got this on your wrist, that says that you really know what you're doing when you're making moves, shall we say, in understanding what independent watchmaking is all about. Let's do it on the wrist and see how it wears. So 41 millimeters sounds like it could be quite large, but actually, because of the way that the lugs taper, it wears very well. 10.5 millimeters is thin. This would work extremely well as a dress watch. The calf skin, which is made specifically for this piece, is extremely supple. You don't have a huge amount of bolstering around the top end like you do with a lot of brands. And it's 20 millimeters in width. So if you want to accessorize, you can. Hopefully that's coming out. You can see how it sits. It sits very flat to the wrist. It has a pin buckle. You know my thoughts on pin buckle. I would prefer to have a deploying clasp. And maybe at this price point, maybe I'd argue that it probably should have one. But I don't think there's any denying that the contrast between the rose gold and the rhodium and then the satin finish is really stand out on this piece. I think he's going from strength to strength. As I mentioned, this is a limited edition of 10. Previous editions were only 5. For example, the FPSK 22 was limited edition of just 5 for the year. So, you know, even at 10, this is still an extremely rare, sought-after timepiece that is instantly Pikullik. What I like about it is he doesn't really need to rely on an emblem. If you know about watches and you see this skeletonization, which is kind of becoming his hallmark here, you'll know that it's a Felipe Pikullik. I think he's doing a fantastic job. I'm really looking forward to how his brand is going to evolve. It's a massive undertaking to go from 5 watches of one kind to 10 watches in a year. I know that sounds crazy, but in order to ramp up the production, the infrastructure that's required, it changes considerably. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to come up with next, whether it's in relation to skeletonization or other models, but so far I think he's doing an absolutely super job. So that's the Pikullik FPSK 24. I'd love to know what you think. Is £16,000 too much to pay for what is effectively an ETA movement, or do you think that the handwork that has gone into this justifies that price? I'd love to know, but for that time, that's enough from me. I'll see you next time.